Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to another episode of Canucks Conversation, brought to you by our friends over at Greta. Greta is our spot to chill during the season and during the off season. It's the home of our electric watch parties. Make Greta your spot to chill anytime of the year. I feel like my mic's something's wrong with it.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Harmon sounds great. So something when you were playing around with your headphones there, Quads, I think you did something you weren't supposed to.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, but I can hear you through like Harmon's mic. So how about we try and figure this out?
Sounds good.
Sniper
in the chat. Excellent HQ audio.
I thought I did something wrong. I'm glad it wasn't me, at least.
This mic's just not on.
Do you want to try and switch to the other mic if you can? Will it reach?
On the fly.
Sure, sounds good. You're gonna have to Pat McAfee it though. Can you hear me on this
yeah,
mic?
This is way better.
So your middle mic is dead. So how about I go in and take a look at that mic as we have lovely problems here.
You're gonna have to Pat McAfee it. I don't mind. I'll stand. But people can't see me because the camera's not on me on this mic. But this is Canucks Conversation. I think we have to just get the show rolling now.
Let's do it.
Let's talk, Harm. Let's talk. There's a lot of stuff going on right now in the National Hockey League and with the Vancouver Canucks, specifically the trade of Vasily Podkolzin to the Edmonton Oilers. That one came down on Sunday night. I was just at the BC Lions game when it happened, and I really wasn't expecting anything to happen, obviously, on a Sunday. But sure enough, it did. And we're left with Vasily Podkolzin going to the Edmonton Oilers for a 4th-round pick. Your thoughts on the deal?
I had 3 main thoughts that immediately came to mind when the trade happened, and as I sort of initially sort of thought my way through the move. Number one, I completely understand the logic behind why they made that trade, and I'll walk through that further later on in the show. Number two, I don't love that they sent him to a divisional rival. Right, helping the Oilers out, and presumably for the Oilers, this is sort of Dylan Holloway insurance in the bottom 6, just to have another energy bottom 6 grinder. Number 3, the return was only okay, right? It's modest, but I also didn't expect him to have much higher value than the 4th-round pick that the Canucks got in return for him. So ultimately, it's a type of trade that I look at, kind of shrug and go, I can understand why they made it. Again, don't love that they sent him to arguably their biggest rival right now. But it's not something that evokes a strong emotion in me one way or another.
That's fair. Can you hear me now?
Yep. We are good now. So I don't know what happened, but we are back and running.
People can't see it. I was doing the Pat McAfee. How do you say his name? McAfee? McAfee. I always get that messed up. Okay. McAfee, Pat McAfee. I was doing the standing up, wearing my t-shirt and everything. I was ready to go, but I'm back in my seat and I'm back being comfortable. But this Podkolzin trade, like, I was just looking at the reaction to it, and it did seem like a lot of people kind of thought, okay, this is a very low upside trade for the Vancouver Canucks, but it does kind of scream, okay, we don't want to lose this guy on waivers for nothing. The thing I just wondered, like, when I was giving my immediate reaction to it, the thing that I started to wonder about was, like, okay, if you know he's going to go on waivers, could you not call a team like the Oilers, like, let's say in training camp or whenever you're going to make the cut, that you need to get rid of Podkolzin? Can you not just call them and say, hey, we're going to be putting him on waivers, but you, the Stanley Cup runner-ups, you can jump the queue and give up a 4th-round pick to get him a 3rd-round pick? I don't know. Maybe it's wishful thinking.
They must have thought it through and figured that the market for him, like, there's a chance that you get to training camp and other teams have their rosters kind of set. They know who they want internally in playing for these NHL spots, and that maybe there's not room for him on other teams at that point, or maybe teams are like, well, we know he's going to hit waivers anyway, and so unless we really think that there's going to be a bunch of teams, that there's going to be some type of bidding war, we might as well wait it out. And so maybe the Canucks would have less leverage at that point.
That's fair. So maybe that's the way that they kind of went about it. And again, it's hard to get into the minds of the front office, but clearly we can at least assume they felt, okay, there's no spot for Podkolzin on this team, which is just unfortunate. I wrote today at Canucks Army the timeline of Podkolzin's time with the Canucks. The guy played for 3 NHL coaches in really 2 seasons, right? Like, he was here 3 years, but he had so many different coaches. Last season was his first year to go down in Abbotsford and really just be the guy. Really, it was his first chance to be the guy anywhere that wasn't a World Junior or a international junior tournament since like the Hlinka and the World Juniors. That was his first chance to go be the guy somewhere and have steady deployment. Look, the organization was very dysfunctional just a couple of years ago. It's better now, and it feels like there's a chance Podkolzin finds his game in Edmonton, obviously. Would it have been hard for him to find his game here in Vancouver? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. I don't love the trade, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from. I ultimately just don't think it was going to work out for him in Vancouver specifically. Number one, Rick Tocchet clearly didn't trust him. Plus, you combine that with just how much competition there was for fourth line winger spots, especially after signing Daniel Sprong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that he was ever going to leapfrog like a Phil DiGiuseppe or a Nils Zaman. Now, a lot of fans on the outside may look at that and say, well, why shouldn't Podkolzin be in a position where he can potentially move ahead of those guys on the depth chart? But I just think Tocchet, remember, we're talking about this coach specifically. He's always had a soft spot for PDG because of how low maintenance he is. The defensive reliability standpoint, which is the big difference between PDG and Podkolzin, is it just doesn't seem like Tocchet fully came to trust Podkolzin defensively. And then for Amon, it's the flexibility that, okay, he can play center as well, and he's got that valuable versatility. I think the opportunity just wasn't going to be there for him to consistently, like in a best case scenario, I think for Podkolzin coming out of camp would have been make the team. And then if the lineup is healthy, he's probably on the outside looking in, and it's a case where he's in and out of the press box. And I just don't think that would have been the consistent opportunity for him to regain confidence and sort of find the right mental state for him to break out, which I think is part of why when we're discussing, okay, could it work out for him in Edmonton? I think Podkolzin could just really use a fresh start. I think he could use a coach that, maybe really believes in him, a consistent opportunity, because look, every player is different, like in terms of their performance relative to if they have confidence or not. But Podkolzin seems especially sensitive to where when he doesn't feel like he's trusted, when he doesn't have a long leash, when he lacks belief in himself, he starts to play as if he's overthinking every play on the ice. And he plays timid, he plays slow. That's when he starts making mistakes. He's not as much of a factor on the forecheck, in part because he's so hard on himself. But then there are also flashes where, okay, let's say he's rare occasion he scores a goal. It's like the next couple of games, the other parts of his game are just like night and day, and you see him playing fast. You see him carrying the puck a lot more. You see him trusting his own instincts, driving the puck to the net, and you're like, okay, this guy could actually be an effective bottom six grinder. So we'll see. It could work out for him in Edmonton, and that's again part of the reason why, while I understand the trade, I don't love the fact that they sent him to Edmonton.
I was poking around the Oilers' line combinations on Daily Faceoff. How many goals does Vasily Podkolzin score if he spends a whole year next to Draisaitl or McDavid?
Well, he's not getting that opportunity.
No, he's not. He might.
He really shouldn't.
One injury in the top six. Who's going up? It's not Corey Perry. Probably not going to be Connor Brown or Matthias Janmark. Maybe it'll be Janmark. But Podkolzin's going to get a shot, I think, with McDavid or Draisaitl at some point.
He might at some point,
maybe
but he really
shouldn't.
Stay.
One injury. It's one injury away.
I think I could see him getting to a point where he can develop into a useful grinder, but ultimately, like his AHL numbers weren't that great either. That's the kicker, right? 28 points in 44 AHL games this year.
Dude, his numbers and 28 everywhere except for the Hlinka Gretzky in 2018 are bad. That's the thing I realized when I was writing
and maybe his rookie season in the NHL where he scored 14 goals. That's respectable. That's legit production.
Yeah, it's a fine. Yeah.
It's like if you're 21, 22 years old in the AHL and you have plans on ever becoming a top 9 forward, even at a third line level, you need to at least be a point per game player. That's usually the benchmark for, okay, this level of production at the AHL level can translate to top 9 NHL success. We just haven't seen that with Podkolzin, which is like if he was lighting up the AHL and maybe he wasn't producing at the NHL level, then you're like, okay, maybe he can really stick as a middle six forward and he still has that upside. I think offensively his growth has just been stunted.
Okay. Busy show, like I said today. We're going to get to Family Feud, of course, but we're going to do it after anyone else because there's just so much to talk about. Patrik Laine got traded. The Oilers chose not to match the offer sheets for Broberg and Holloway, so Oilers heavy show. We're going to talk about that later in anyone else. And of course, we're also going to talk about the big news of the day, Thatcher Demko. We're going to get to that in anyone else. It's going to be an early anyone else today, folks. So get your anyone else's in. Did you have anything else you want to say about Podkolzin before we got to the poll question, which is about Podkolzin?
No.
It's just an unfortunate end to the chapter.
Sorry, one more potentially related to the timing. It does open up an extra contract slot for the Canucks because they were at 49 contracts, right? So
go get a goalie.
Anything could be related to anything, right? Maybe a goalie, but it gives you that extra slot to where you can make a move ahead of the regular season, even ahead of camp if necessary. You can sign a guy.
We'll want to head out to Troy Stetcher's camp for Vancouver-based NHLers. See if Martin Jones is practicing in Canucks gear. We'll see. And we'll get to that. People are asking in the chat our thoughts on the Oilers not matching the offer sheets. We'll get to it and anyone else. So get your anyone else's in, folks. Like I said, we're getting to it quickly today because we've got so much to talk about. And Demko obviously is the most important thing. But first, let's get to our poll question, which is brought to you by Bet365. Our poll question: how do you feel about the Vasily Podkolzin trade? Love it. It makes sense, I guess, and I hate it. Harmon, right now, 73.7% of voters say it makes sense, I guess. 23.4% say they hate it. 2.9% say they love it. So far, those are the votes that come in. I think I'm somewhere in between it makes sense, I guess, and hate it. I hate that this is how Vasily Podkolzin's time as a Vancouver Canuck ended. I hate that the Canucks didn't take Matt Boldy. I hate that they didn't take Cole Caulfield. Those guys would be huge difference makers for this team right now. So I think that's where I'm at. Not so much about what the Canucks actually gave up. I think I like Podkolzin as a player, and I hate that it didn't work out in Vancouver.
Yeah, it makes sense, I guess, is I feel like one of the perfect phrase to capture how I kind of feel is, yeah, logically totally understand why the Canucks made that move, but it's sort of like a shrug your shoulders at a modest return and it's nothing special, right? So, all
right. That was our poll question. It was brought to you by Bet365, a proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, is never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code VANBONUS when you sign up for an account. Let's get to anyone else. We're getting to it early today, folks. Get your anyone else's in the chat. Let's get to anyone else, brought to you by the Vancouver Canadians. Oh, the C's are back. The C's are back home. I almost forgot to tell you. C's are back home. Fireworks extravaganza on Thursday the 22nd, Nooners on Friday the 23rd, and Family Fun Sunday on the 25th. That's all this week. These games are all sure to be packed, so get your tickets now. Don't wait any longer. Call 604-872-5232 or go to canadiansbaseball.com. Head out to the Nat. Always a good time out there at Nat Bailey Stadium. Also, not to make excuses, but I just want people to know my headphones are completely off today. I can't hear anything. I'm just listening. Like, I can hear you, but nothing's coming through. Like, I'm just happy people can hear what I'm saying. I can't hear you. I don't think I'm going to be able to hear Jacob. So this might cause some issues for Family Feud, which is why I'm bringing it up so that Jacob at least knows about it and we can try to figure it out. But I'm not sure how this is going to work out, but we'll figure it out. I have some ideas. Like picking up this headset. But anyways, let's get to anyone else.
It's funny because you're also mentioning this on air, and anytime I hear technical difficulties, I just feel so helpless because I'm like, I can't solve anything.
I'm decent at coming up with solutions on the fly.
Yeah.
Which is why I should be better at Family Feud. But so far, you've been the better player. And for those joining us for the first time, it is a Family Feud episode because I'm going on vacation this week. So one show this week, one show next week. Irfan Ghaffar will be sitting in for me. You'll be in with Irfan Ghaffar. Up to you guys. I'm not going to have any say. If you guys want to do a Family Feud without me next week, by all means, you guys go ahead. But
I'd love to see Irfan doing Family
I can't hear
Feud.
Jacob, kind of.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I'd love to see Irfan doing Family Feud. I think that'd be hilarious.
And this thing, Jeff Patterson really wants to do Family Feud. Like, Jeff loves Family Feud.
That'd be fun.
And he wants to be in on it. But Jeff is also on vacation. So we'll get it eventually. And again, we're going to do this every Thursday during the year. We got some big plans for the show during the year. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll get to Family Feud later, but let's get to anyone else. Do we have some anyone else's in the chat. Oh, here's some people talking about Thatcher Demko, Harm, because today on Halford and Bruff on Sportsnet 650, Rick Dollywall came out with a bit of a banger. I'd call this a dolly bomb. He's talking about Thatcher Demko, and what he said is, what I am hearing is that he is progressing, but there is no timetable as to when he's going to be 100% healthy. He goes on to talk about how the Canucks were worried about his rehab dating back to the NHL draft. And we obviously heard earlier in the offseason from Dollywall that the Canucks were poking around on Casey DeSmith and the goalie market. Dollywall reporting again today that this is the season this is the time of the season to talk to players, agents about professional tryouts, PTOs, and the Canucks are poking around the goalie market. So you said it, they've got an extra contract. Martin Jones is just down the block. Maybe something there?
Maybe. I mean, of course, for first take is you don't love seeing it, right? You're not smashing the panic button yet, but it is concerning, especially when the report is no timetable yet. So does that mean he'll be ready for training camp, the start of the regular season? Now, the Canucks, the one good thing is they've reached the point now where, as a team, they can weather Demko if it ever got to this point. And we don't even know if it's going to get to this point. But if we do reach October and he's not ready for the start of the regular season, we know that the Canucks are good enough defensively, are good enough top to bottom, that they can still win games without Thatcher Demko. That's a good thing, right? Whereas years past, we would have been like, oh, Thatcher Demko's timeline is uncertain and we're close to the start of the season.
Here comes Colin Delia and Spencer Martin.
We'd be panicking, right? It'd be like, well, there goes all their playoff chances, right? But it also opens up the question around his health and overall durability. And yeah, the Canucks can weather missing Demko on a short-term basis, but we know that they're a completely different caliber of team if they have him playing at a Vezina level, because there's so few goaltenders out there that can consistently play like a true 1A starter.
That's your advantage. Like, that's your big advantage over teams, right? So I was kind of working through it today and just looking at if he's not ready for the start of the season, and we don't know. We don't know the timeline. We know that there is no real timeline provided just yet. There's so many different things to consider here. And it's very easy to come out and say, well, you got to sign this guy, you got to sign that guy. And yes, I'm talking about Martin Jones because I think that'd be great. But you could just see a tandem of Shilov's Patera. Don't forget, they signed Yuri Patera earlier this offseason. You could see Nikita Tolopilo get a spot. Get a start or two. He's in a very similar spot that Artur Shilovs was in last year. You could see Demko be quote unquote healthy and the Canucks really ease him in, right? Like, if we're talking about no timetable right now and not being 100% healthy, I think we're talking about Shilov starting the year as the starter, potentially, and easing Demko back in. Like, if he's good to go, that doesn't mean, okay, Thatcher, you're playing 80% of our games now in October, November, December. That's not when the games matter. That's not when the games matter. It doesn't. So I think, again, and I'm not going to sit here and say, I think this is going to happen because we don't know everything with Demko. And again, I don't want to sit here and speculate what they should do or anything like that, because we don't know. And what everybody's hoping for is that Demko's healthy. I think at the very least, the fact that this is even a conversation, it really hammers home the idea that, okay, it needs to be like a 55-45 split with Shilovs and Demko.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it really hammers home that has to happen. Hell, I'd put Shilovs in that 55 at this point.
I wouldn't go that far yet.
How many more knee injuries until you're at that level? Give me the number, Harm.
Well, I'm not a medical expert, so.
Well, I am. Again, we don't know what's going on with Thatcher Demko, and obviously everybody's hoping that he's healthy. As for targets, because everybody's asking, those PTO targets, who's out there? I look at a guy like Antti Raanta, also gone through some injuries in his career. Martin Jones is kind of the big one that stands out. The local angle, all that sort of stuff. Kevin Lankinen as well is another name. They don't have, all the three of those guys don't have contracts.
Lankinen was really good in Nashville last year.
So maybe not a PTO, but an actual signing. But he doesn't have a contract.
That's so strange. Lankinen had a 908 in 24 games for Nashville last season and a 916 in 19 games.
How tall is he?
6'2".
Yeah.
His number, like, it's not just his save percentage. His adjusted, like, goals saved above expected numbers are really good.
So Lankinen is what you're saying?
But I don't know. Is he like, what kind of contract is he looking for? Right.
That's a great question because he's coming off 1 year at $2 million and he still doesn't have a contract.
But also, if
that's not a PTO candidate,
he's like Lankinen is probably looking for a stable, like clear backup position. So from a player's perspective, right? Imagine you're Kevin Lankinen and I come to you as a Canucks and I say, well, we don't know Thatcher's timeline yet. Maybe he's ready. And at that point, then you're battling with Shilovs. We can't guarantee you a backup position. How attractive does that sound to you? You wouldn't want to take it unless you're clear-cut certain that you're going to be one of the 2 goaltenders in an NHL tandem.
Because what does the next off season look like if you're Kevin Lankinen and you didn't play NHL games?
Exactly. And this is why I would be in wait and see mode if I'm the Canucks, because you can also pick up a guy off waivers if necessary, because then closer to the start of the season, you're going to have a much clearer idea of where Demko's at.
Because Lankinen's more the option of, okay, Demko's out long term. Like he's not going to be your start the year. We know this is going to be your situation. You're going to be the 1A, 1B guy. That's an attractive situation for Lankinen. So again, it depends what happens with Thatcher Demko. And obviously everybody is hoping that what happens with Thatcher Demko is that he's completely healthy and ready to go to start the new season.
On a bit of a side tangent, I was thinking, because the idea of the workhorse starter who plays 65 games in a season is kind of dying, because tandems are so popular and because so many teams use a third goalie. Do you think the NHL should, I don't know what the exact rule change would be, but make it easier for teams to carry 3 goalies? Especially related to like waivers?
I think so. But again, you'd have to make drastic rule changes.
Yeah.
I think you should make those changes though.
Because the league is evolving. Like it feels we're in a weird spot where as an organization, you need 3 good goalies, bare minimum.
Yep.
And yet your third goalie can't be too good, because at the start of the season, when you got to make your cuts, he's going to land on waivers and another team could pluck him.
It's almost like an NFL depth chart. You got your 3 QBs.
Yeah.
I like that. I think you're right. I think that is kind of how the sport's evolving. So that's a really good thought-provoking kind of discussion to have, I think.
And Quads, you can think about it with pitchers in baseball too, adding the extra spot in the bullpen and how that changed roster construction in MLB. I think you guys are definitely onto something here.
Did you see the rule change proposed by MLB?
No.
Pitchers have to go a minimum of 6 innings. Starting pitchers have to go a minimum of 6 innings.
No way.
It's like we're asking for the moon so that they can get a little less. But the idea is like we want Paul Skeens to go out for 6 innings. We want these marquee matchups of like big starting pitcher versus big starting pitcher.
What if a guy is just getting lit up?
Well, exactly. That's why it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But the NA, like there's other rules. I almost call it the NHLPA. The MLBPA is also bringing up, you know, they're going to have a back and forth about it, but it's going to be different stuff like, okay, if you take out your pitcher, you're going to lose your DH if you took him out before 6 innings. So now you have to use bench players, which is a long discussion. We're not going to divulge a bunch of baseball talk on this show, but it's interesting talking about rule changes and everything. I feel like icing needs some reforming.
Really?
Yeah,
I like how icing is right now. What do you not like about it?
Like icing the puck on the penalty kill, I guess, is more so what I'm talking about.
No, dude. NHL power plays are
better.
Really good. They're the best they've ever been.
Yeah.
You're going to say you can't ice the puck now? Like,
yeah.
How are you going to effectively kill penalties?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just want to see more power play goals.
You're already seeing a ton. The average power play percentage keeps climbing every year.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Anything else that I'm not seeing in the chat that we need to get to? Oh yeah. We didn't talk about the Oilers. The Oilers today did not match the offer sheets for Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, losing both players to the St. Louis Blues. They made a side deal. The Oilers get, what's that guy's name? Fisher? I should have this open. I don't.
Yeah, one sec.
Yeah, they traded for someone.
I have it here.
And then
Paul Fisher,
there's a name. And then the 3rd round pick as well. And I was kind of explaining this kind of as the Blues saying, okay, well, if you don't match these, we will give you this as well. So in the end, the Oilers are left with Vasily Podkolzin and Paul Fisher. Never heard of him. That's a Bobby McMahon moment if I've ever seen one. Troy Stetcher's probably going to be a top 4 defenseman for the Oilers this year. Like right now on paper, he is. Like go look at the Oilers line combos.
Yeah, especially now that they don't have CC either.
Yeah.
Although Ty Emberson was quietly good for San Jose before he got hurt.
Okay, so it's Emberson and Stetcher. Well, I guess you got Kulak, Nurse still.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll try Kulak on his offside. Because he's probably more likely to be able to hang in a top 4 role than Stetcher or Emberson. I mean, they've got options. They'll play with different combinations and experiment in camp and preseason.
Nick P in the chat. No icing on the penalty kill replaces net front Myers as Quad's worst idea. This one from Kron. Another thing around the league. Is it worth trying to get Askarov out of Nashville, or do they lack the assets? We were talking about this before the show. First of all, I don't like Yaro Askarov. I've talked about this in his draft year. I was talking about how I think he's super overrated. I still don't believe in him. Like everybody's,
you're the number one
I
hater
don't like Askarov
of him that I know.
Yeah, I don't like Askarov. I think there are a lot of people who can, and I don't want to come out and disrespect people, but I think there are a lot of people who really understand the position of goaltending and watched his draft year tape and were like, this guy's going to suck as soon as he goes to the NHL. He has made some adjustments in the AHL, which is fine. He's got a lot of raw tools. Wish every prospect luck. I don't like Askarov, and I don't think the Canucks trade for him. And if they did, they'd be giving up way too much. Like, think about what it's going to take to get a young goaltender with control out of Nashville. What is Nashville going to want in that trade? Starts with the 1st round pick. Starts with that. I could think of like 10 better players to go get for the Canucks needs than Askarov.
Yeah, I'm not willing to pay.
You've already got Askarov. You've got Shelovs. Don't even laugh. Which one's played NHL games? I'm glad you didn't. But like, I don't know. It's just funny how much draft pedigree, how much weight that carries. Because, yeah, anyways, whatever. I'll laugh at the team that gives up 1st for Askarov. That's all I'll say. But although if you're a team like Chicago, you do it, I think. I think it's the only team it makes sense for.
Yeah, a young rebuilding type team that hasn't found its goalie of the future yet.
Yeah, you've got to try and find him eventually. So yeah, I like it.
How about a team that just made a trade recently as well in the Montreal Canadiens? Go out and add your young goalie to pair now with Patrik Laine, who we have some questions in the chat about what your guys' thoughts are on the Laine trade.
Oh yeah, we did. See, there's so much to talk about. Okay, this one from Jeevan Bangu. Thoughts on the Laine trade? Yes, so Patrik Laine goes to the Montreal Canadiens. Canadiens don't give up much at all. They get a 2nd round pick as well. And they give up Jordan Harris. Again, crowded blue line in Montreal, 24-year-old defenseman. They lose him. I like that trade a lot for the Habs. And again, when we were talking about, should the Canucks go out and trade Patrik Laine? It wasn't like, should the Canucks give up a bunch of assets to go get Patrik Laine? This is what it was going to cost. I like that trade a lot for the Habs. And you pointed out earlier when we were talking about it before the show, they could do the Sean Monahan thing if it doesn't work out. Flip him, retain some salary. Like, you can still get assets for Patrik Laine here.
Yeah, it especially because there's no clear opportunity cost. Like, what else were the Canadians going to do with that cap space? It was just going to be sitting there.
Exactly.
And so for them, it's low downside risk and has a high upside probability.
Yep. I like that. I like that a lot.
The only thing I wonder is, are they going to be able to put him in a position to succeed lineup wise? Because I don't think they're going to break up that top line of Suzuki, Slavkovsky, and Caulfield. So then who's Laine playing with, right? You'd imagine Doc and Newhook, but Doc's been hurt for most of the last 2 years. And Newhook, while he had a decent year in Montreal, I don't know if he's a full-time true top 6 caliber player. So you got to be able to put him in a position to succeed. Also on the first power play unit, you've already got Caulfield as a major sort of right shot weapon. So can one of those guys work in the bumper? Because you can't have both of them on their one-timer side on the first unit.
That's an interesting thought. And I mean, it's kind of the conversation we were having out here about Laine as well, right?
Yeah.
It was like, well, he's really efficient in that one spot on the power play. You already have JT Miller. It's an interesting conversation. And I think they're going to like this investment one way or another. I think it's pretty foolproof from Montreal's perspective, and I really like it. I don't know what over under Laine scoring 35 goals next year. I'm taking over.
I'm taking the under just because I don't trust his injury history. But that, again, I still like the trade for them.
Mm-hmm.
He's only scored more than 30 twice in his career, and it was his rookie and sophomore year.
Wow, we have a lot of news. Beniers extended 7 years at $7.14 million in Seattle.
That's going to age very well.
That's a great contract.
His sophomore slump was just like, you look at the underlying numbers, he was still generating shots and chances at a similar clip. His two-way numbers were still really impressive. Just suffered from tough shooting percentage luck. I bet you he has a monster year 3.
Yeah. I'm just looking at that, like Chandler Stevenson, Matty Beniers, same player. For same amount of time too, mind you. So that's an interesting one to keep an eye on. But anyways, is there anything else we missed? There's so much NHL news. Is there anything we're missing? I feel like we've touched on everything.
I wanted to say with the Broberg-Holloway thing, letting Broberg walk makes sense just because of that cap figure and the compensation getting that second round pick back. Holloway, though, I still would have matched him. 2.2, I think Holloway still has potential with that speed, just how dynamic he can play. I still think he's got some skill. I thought the contract at 2.2, yeah, it's a little bit more than you would have wanted to pay, but it's not that steep of a number. I would have matched on Holloway and just not made the Podkolzin trade if I was Edmonton.
The real thing it comes down to is, would you rather have Podkolzin and would you rather have Podkolzin and a third, Podkolzin at 1.1 million, or would you rather have Holloway at 2.2 and a fourth? I lean Holloway.
Me too. And yet I say that still with the idea that I could see Podkolzin working out in Edmonton. I just don't think he has the offensive upside that Holloway does. That's the difference.
Yeah, and I liked Holloway a lot, especially in the playoffs too. Like, yeah. I liked what he was bringing to the Oilers lineup. The Broberg part. Any surprise there? Like, the Blues executed this well. It was a well thought out offer sheet, and it kind of hamstrung the Oilers. They caught them with their pants down. That's what it came down to, right?
Also, the left side of St. Louis's blue line sucks. And it has for a long time. So I can understand that, yeah, they paid him a premium, and could this be a contract that doesn't age well for the Blues? Yeah, but it's only 2 years. They're in a retool mode. And like, Leddy's decent on the left side, but after that, Perunovic is a small, injury-prone, like 26-year-old who hasn't been able to crack it. And they had to go out and sign Ryan Suter. Like, that left side desperately needs some young talent with upside, and that's what Broberg is, even if he's overpaid at $4.5 million right now.
Jimmy Honeywell in the YouTube chat, I hope the Broberg Holloway situation leads to more offer sheets throughout the league. And honestly, that's the thought that I keep having, right? Is not only did we see the offer sheets, but we also saw a trade right when it was announced this morning. When the announcement came down, it was, oh yeah, and we've also made this trade. Those two teams managed to work out a trade. And again, like I said, the way it reads to me is like sort of a, okay, if you don't match these, we will also throw in a third round pick. It's an interesting way of going about your business. And I like it. Like, let's see more offer sheets. The thing that I've started to wonder about is if offer sheets start to make a comeback in the NHL, do the Canucks have any situations coming up where they need to kind of have their guard up? And I couldn't really find any. Like, I was looking at it, it's going to be years down the road. It's going to be when the Canucks are in the position. It's basically going to be, from what I can see, the next time the Canucks have to worry about that is basically going to be when Quinn Hughes' when Quinn Hughes' contract is up and they have to get him on his next one.
Maybe. Well, also, if Höglander has a good year.
But they wouldn't really have to worry. Okay, what does a good year for Höglander look like? Like, if he matches last year's?
I don't even think he can match 24 goals. Like, if he has another 15, 20 goals.
But what's he getting on?
But-
I guess
but
the
here's the thing.
OEL thing too
It's-
comes
it's-
in, and yeah,
It's
okay.
the disparity between. It's not because they can't afford Höglander. It's would they like Höglander at a certain number?
Absolutely, and that's what this all comes down to. That's what it comes down to with Philip Broberg. Would Edmonton have liked to keep Broberg? Yeah, the report came out. They offered him 2x2 or something like that. 2.2 million, I think, was the cap hit. Don't know how many years was on that, but that was their offer. They're not matching 4 point whatever.
Yeah, 4.5.
They're not matching that. So again, that's an interesting way of looking at it. So I guess Höglander might be the next one.
But
Nils
also,
Amon, the
it'll
next offseason.
it'll also depend on if it actually works out for St. Louis or not.
Mhm.
Because if Broberg, it was just a flash in the pan from in the playoffs, and he struggles with the Blues, and maybe Holloway doesn't break out, then teams will probably look at that and go, too risky. Wasn't worth it.
This also gives RFAs a whole new level of negotiating leverage, right? If teams start using offer sheets, like if you're Nils Höglander, right? If you're the Canucks and you're looking at this and saying, okay, our next real threat, and again, I said it would be after Hughes. If you consider Höglander, sure, Höglander might be a threat because you're right. It might just be a team overpaying for what the Canucks are comfortable giving him. The Canucks now go into negotiation and say, okay, we want to get this done now so that we don't have the risk of an offer sheet, so that no team is going to be looking to offer sheet Nils Höglander. If you're Nils Höglander, you're just saying, well, I think I could get more in an offer sheet, so I'd like you to come a little higher. That's a new form of leverage for the players.
I don't think it would impact an RFA like Höglander too much, just because he has arbitration rights. So that gives him certain level of like, okay, I've
His
got
own
this
leverage,
production.
yeah.
The same way that like Philip Hronik as an RFA had a ton of leverage because he had the threat of going
Counting
to arbitration.
sets. Yep.
It's the RFAs that haven't reached that ARB eligibility yet. Those are the RFAs that get screwed over and sign these, like, they'll have a decent year and then sign a really cheap, like 1 or 2 year contract. They get squeezed because they only really have two options outside of offer sheets. It's really just one option. It's to hold out, and you can't hold out forever. So
the other thing though is like, I think it's safe to say if Philip Broberg went to arbitration, if he had arbitration rights, I don't think an arbitrator would have given him 4.5.
Obviously.
So with Höglander, what's he getting in arbitration? What's he getting from a team that really, really wants to just do what the Blues did here? But again, we'll see how the Blues.
Yeah, but if a team's like giving Höglander, let's say like $4.5 million or something,
yeah,
and the compensation's a second round pick, I bet you the Canucks just would take the compensation.
Absolutely. Kind of like what the Oilers did.
Yeah,
take the compensation. All right. Did you have anything else that you want to get to? I wanted to get to this Mount Rushmore tweet. Did you see this on the Canucks Army socials? Okay. Who's on your Vancouver Canucks Mount Rushmore? Our socials guy, Robert. Shout out Robert. He put the Sedins separate. For our purposes, let's put the Sedins together. They count as one.
Okay, yeah.
Save some money on the chiseling. You know, you don't have to do the same thing twice. One Sedin. He's wearing number 23 or 32. We know for our purposes, Vancouver Canucks Mount Rushmore, you've got Sedin. Because really, you have to have both. Or let's just say our Mount Rushmore has 5 heads instead of 4.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got both Sedins. Starts with that. Give me your other 3.
It has to be Bure.
Yep.
I want to throw Luongo in there.
Yeah.
And then now would be Linden, but it's going to be Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, okay. So you kind of stole my thunder a bit, but that's okay. We didn't do any prep for this segment. I was going to say, you've got the Sedins, you've got Pavel Bure, I also have Roberto Luongo, and I have Quinn Hughes.
Honestly, if somebody wanted to say I want Quinn Hughes right now, I would not blame them.
Think about if you're pitching to this, like now let's get real technical. You're pitching this to the province of BC saying, hey, on the drive up through the Okanagan, a lot of mountains there, we want to put up the greatest Canucks heads. But in 5 years, we're going to want to update that.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're not getting funding for that. How long do you think what's the history of Mount Rushmore? How long do you think it takes to chisel those faces?
Yeah, you're asking me an expert on this.
Wow, although technology must be better now. Mount Rushmore from October 4th, 1927 to October 31st, 1941. That's how many years it took. It involved the efforts of nearly 400 men and women. The duties involved varied greatly from the callboy to drillers to the blacksmith to the housekeepers. Wow. How much money did that cost? It's pretty sick, though. I was going to call it a waste of money. That's pretty cool. No? Wow, this is interesting. I'm going to read all
Did you find a
about
cost?
this.
I'm actually really curious about this.
So it cost at the time $990,000, but we're talking about inflation. But that's way less than I thought it would have cost.
I also thought it was going to be way more than that.
Like that's under $1 million to
I was looking
chisel
at,
four
like,
faces into stone.
townhomes in Maple Ridge recently, and they're like 990,000. Anyways.
Wow, that's outrageous.
That is.
In Maple Ridge, wow.
Want to talk about housing? I know all about housing. I'll talk to you all about housing if you want, Harm. Anyways, yeah, that's my Mount Rushmore. I think, unfortunately, we had the same one. But yes, I am putting Quinn Hughes on it ahead of Trevor Linden.
Yeah, no disagreement there.
Okay. The Diesel Cruiser in the chat, though, disagrees. He said, guys, Linden has to be on there. That guy was a beast for us. Just not enough for us. Wait, he made a typo. It's okay. But he said, yeah, anyways, I agree. A week ago, Mr. Cruiser in the chat, on Family Feud, I was asked who the greatest Canadian Canuck of all time was. I incorrectly said Trevor Linden, but I'm not saying Trevor Linden. I'm not saying what Harmon was saying about ripping Stan Smyle's jersey down or anything
come
like
on.
that. He's still a legend in this organization. I'm just saying, again, we're trying to get funding for this project. I'm not going and saying, yeah, we're going to put, like, Quinn Hughes is going to go down as a better all-time Canuck than Trevor Linden.
Oh, yeah.
He's already there. He's already there. He's the greatest Canucks defenseman of all time. Isn't he going to break the franchise point total record in like a third of the time that it took Alex Edler to do it? Come on. What are we talking about? Quinn Hughes deserves to be on there. I'll give it to you, though. If you give me 6 heads, we're adding like 100 million to this project now, Diesel Cruiser. If you give me 6 heads, yeah, I'm putting Linden.
Yeah, you're
on
adding.
there.
I thought you were going to say Noah Juleson.
Oh no, not Noah Juleson. And if you give me the funding to be like, yeah, we're just gonna tweak. You know those videos where they morph the faces, where it'll start as one face and morph into another face?
I haven't seen those.
Oh well, if you give me the funding to start with, you start Trevor Linden, and then in 5 years we switch it to Quinn Hughes, I'm fine with that. But right now, sure. If it's right now, maybe it's Trevor Linden. But also, we're trying to get funding for this project, so Quinn Hughes. Another thing, speaking of the Hughes brothers on the cover of NHL 25. That appears to have leaked. Did you catch that yesterday?
I did, yeah.
Yep. So Hughes brothers on the cover. Game's gonna suck, but yeah, we'll see.
I like 23 better than 24.
Me too. Do you play much?
Only when I'm over at a friend's house.
So there's a big issue this year with players abusing the left trigger, which makes you skate backwards.
Mhm.
Like, you go the same speed skating backwards as you do going forward, basically.
Oh, so like when you have the puck in the
Yes.
offensive zone?
So you can just shield the puck away from the defenseman by skating backwards into him.
Oh, I'm going to use that.
Well, I think they've nerfed it a little
Okay.
bit, but it was a big problem. And basically now they're changing. There's this new Hughes skating engine in the game. It's like, oh, that's about to get abused. That's going to lead to a lot of tripping calls when you shouldn't be getting. Anyways.
That's honestly the first thing I thought of when I saw them adding that in there. Because using players like Hughes and Makar already feels overpowered.
Exactly.
Like you could do anything you want.
Shay Jarvis in the chat, 22 was the best shell game. Nick Pochak in the chat. What Linden meant to the Canucks and City is hard to capture with just stats. I understand why younger fans don't feel quite the same as us geezers. Hey, no disrespect, seriously, to Trevor Linden. Like, again, if there is a Mount Rushmore that is constructed right now, Trevor Linden's on it ahead of Quinn Hughes. But I think within like 2 years, maybe, it's Quinn Hughes on there. And that's no disrespect to Trevor Linden. That's just how good Quinn Hughes is. And we're all seeing that right now. Should we get to Family Feud?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's get to Family Feud. I'm all set up. Jacob, take it away.
Welcome back. I'm your man, Jacob Lazar, and we're playing another round of Canucks Combo Family Feud. All right, so Quads has switched off the headphones again. Harmon going first again. You've done well in all 3 weeks here, Harmon. I think you've outscored Quads each time. So we'll see if that continues. Actually, we're not going to have the timers on screen today. Again, just part of the whole switch over behind the scenes stuff, but it hasn't been a problem. You guys have not run out of time yet. So I'm just going to give you guys the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
And like I said, a little easier today. So I don't think the timer would have come into question anyways. All right, Harmon, are you ready?
Yeah.
I will remind you of the rules. No timer today, but if you need to skip a question, just say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. If you're really stuck, I might enforce it, but I think you're going to breeze through this one. All right.
All right.
Okay. If you took the entire Canucks roster and made them compete in another sport, which would they be best at?
Golf.
Other than Quinn Hughes, who is the best defenseman in Canucks history?
Alex Edler.
Which other NHL team would you least want to see win the Stanley Cup in 2025?
Edmonton Oilers.
Name a WHL team other than the Vancouver Giants.
Calgary Hitmen.
Who is the toughest player in Canucks history?
Gino Ojic.
Good work. All right, you can tap quads. I'll tally up your score.
So how'd that go?
Did all right. I think I maybe messed up a question or two as per usual, but I feel like it was good enough.
That's part of the game. Like, that is part of the game. That's what people need to understand. And I mean, we did flub the last couple.
So quads, you're in a good spot here. Harmon killed it. He got
like to hear.
157 points.
Oh, I can't lose now.
So he got 1, 2, 3. He got 3 number 1 answers.
Okay.
And so I know I shouldn't tell you that, but I'm going to, because great work by Harmon has set you up beautifully. I mentioned to him, I don't have the timers today. Again, just part of the whole behind the scenes switch over. Shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Harmon breezed through it.
100. Nice work,
157 points.
Nicely done.
All right, Quads, you ready?
Yes.
So again, no timer today, but if you give her an answer that Harmon gave, you'll hear the buzzer.
Okay.
And I'll ask you to try again.
Okay.
If you need to skip, just say pass and we'll come back to it at the end. Are you ready?
Yep.
If you took the entire Canucks roster and made them compete in another sport, which one would they be best at?
Baseball.
Other than Quinn Hughes, who is the best defenseman in Canucks history?
Alex Edler.
Try again.
Matthias Oland.
Which other NHL team would you least want to see win the Stanley Cup in 2025?
Edmonton Oilers.
Try again.
Vegas Golden Knights.
Name a WHL team other than the Vancouver Giants.
Kamloops Blazers.
Who is the toughest player in Canucks history?
Rick Rippon.
Good job. All right. I can already tell you guys have won. I'll
Nicely
tally up the
done.
points, but yeah, you guys have 100% won, but I'll tally up the points. You guys
I
can
think
chat
that went
amongst
really
yourselves.
well. I think my answers were great. I want to hear exactly what my answers got. So toughest Canuck, you said Gino Ojic.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a number 1 for sure. I think Rick Rippon's probably number 2, right?
Yeah. He's got to be up there.
Yeah. Who else is like a tough Canuck? Because here's the thing that I was thinking about when I saw that Mount Rushmore tweet. If there was no news today, I thought we could do like multiple Mount Rushmores, like your Mount Rushmore of the toughest Canucks of all time, your Mount Rushmore of Canucks defensemen, your Mount Rushmore of backup goaltenders or whatever, right? Like just get really creative with the offseason content. Obviously I'm going on vacation here, so I'm not going to do that idea, but if there's nothing to talk about in one of those September episodes when we ramp things back up, I'd love to do that, like a Mount Rushmore episode like that, where we do multiple Mount Rushmores. So
no disrespect, by the way, to Alex Edler, but when I was thinking about best defenseman not named Quinn Hughes, I was like, man, Alex Edler is your next best option, and he had a great career, but that's kind of sad given how long the Canucks have been a franchise.
I made a face when I said Matthias Oland because I think the number 2 answer is going to be Ed Jovanovski.
No, Olin's.
You think Olin's right?
So you guys ready to go through it?
Go through it.
Quads, you only got 67 points, by the way. You guys won with 224, but Harmon did the heavy lifting.
Right on, Harm.
So the first question, first question was the other sport. Harmon, you said golf. That was the number 2 answer. Ooh. Soccer was the number 1 answer. Baseball got 0, Quads. Come on, know the audience.
Why? Why did baseball get 0? Come on.
You mentioned the sport on here and like 30 people immediately stopped watching. So other answers up there were football, basketball, lacrosse.
Lacrosse gets it, but baseball doesn't? What evidence do we have that Canuck knows how to play lacrosse? Brock Besser was once asked, what would you do if you weren't a pro hockey player? And he said pro baseball player.
I don't know if I see them as golf. I said golf because JT Miller is
like a great golfer.
Unbelievable.
That's a good answer.
Other than Quinn Hughes, who's the best defenseman in Canucks history, Alex Edler was the number 1 answer. Matthias Oland was the number 2 answer.
Nice.
So there you go. Jovanovski was number 3, by the way. I know I heard his name mentioned. Which NHL team would you least want to see win the Stanley Cup in 2025? Harmon answered Edmonton. That was the number 1 answer by far. 47 points there. The Golden Knights had 9. So
nice.
Still some. Number 2 was the Leafs.
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Bruins up there as well. So were the Panthers. I guess people don't want to see them go back to back. Name a WHL team other than the Vancouver Giants. The number one answer was the Kelowna Rockets. The Kamloops Blazers were the number 2 answer. Quads. Harmon, this is the one that you slipped up on. The Hitmen were the number 4 answer with only 8 points. But pretty good spread. We had Prince George Cougars with some love. Everett Silvertips in there. A couple people shouting out Willie Desjardins with the Medicine Hat Tigers. A few of those in there as well. And finally, the toughest player in Canucks history. You guys got the number 1, number 2 answer. Gino Ojic, number 1 with 36 points. Rick Rippon, number 2 with 19. I believe it was his birthday last week. So rest in peace and happy birthday to Rick Rippon. Some other ones on there. Bertuzzi, Tiger Williams, Donald Brashear with a handful as well as some love for Rafi Torres and Kevin Bieksa.
Were there any, throughout those 5 questions, were there any funny?
Someone said the Guelph Storm for a WHL team. They are in Ontario and not in the WHL. And then I think someone got confused because they put a WHL team in for the toughest player in Canucks history. That's just a typo, obviously. And for best defenseman in Canucks history, there was one in there that, oh yes, Philip Hronik. Someone put Philip Hronik.
Alan Walsh found the survey.
And for sports, someone said Fortnite as the other, and then water polo as well. There's a few people being a little funny and silly on that one, but for the most part, some good answers, and you guys killed it today and back in the win column. That's 2-2 now for you guys, right?
Yep, 2-2 on the year.
We're cutting it tighter with the points than I thought.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, with Harmon's 157.
I probably should have got more points. So what did I miss? What did I miss, Jacob?
Going Golden Knights over Leafs was a pretty big miss, and then taking baseball over soccer, football.
How many points would soccer have gotten?
31 for the number 1 answer there.
All right.
Yeah, although I don't think your responses were that bad. I just took a lot of you got a lot of your answers were the ones I already gave, so that's why you didn't get many points.
I appreciate the positivity, Harm, because Karin in the chat said Harm has carried both times you guys have won. Hey, that's fine. You go first. We've got a good strategy in place. You go first. I come clean things up. Almost didn't clean it up today, but I got it done.
If you lost it, though.
Yeah, if I lost it, I
pissed off.
I would go on my vacation. I might not come back. Yeah. Okay. Anything else that you guys wanted to get to before we close out? Oh, yeah, and Jacob mentioned it as well. We forgot to mention it last week, but it was the anniversary of Rick Rippon's passing last week, and I wanted to make sure we mentioned that. Anything else that you guys want to get to before the Bet365 bet of the day?
Nope.
Okay. It's a baseball bet. It's a baseball bet, Harmon. Do you know what I'm taking today? Take a guess. Could you guess?
Something around your Seattle Mariners?
Something around my Seattle Mariners. That's right. The Seattle Mariners with Bryce Miller on the mound. Bryce Miller has been absolutely dominant. You nailed it, Harm. I'm taking the Seattle Mariners to win money line. Plus 125. You can go get the Mariners to beat the Los Angeles Dodgers tonight. Last night, the Mariners fell. Yeah.
Are they making up ground in the wildcard race?
No.
How many games back
they
are
pissed away a 10-game division lead. And now
typical.
They're not gonna win a wild card spot. Their only hope is to reclaim the division lead, but the Astros have it now. And the Astros are historically, especially with this core, even though they're older, the Astros are historically good at
they're not
this time of year and finishing strong. So yeah, this is basically a must-win game for the Mariners. So I'm betting with my heart here because they need to win this game, basically, is what it comes down to. Yeah, Jacob, I haven't looked at the wild card standings in a while. The Mariners are nowhere close to the wild card, right?
Yeah, I'll pull them up, but I think you're right. Their path to the playoffs is through the division.
The AL East is really strong this year, right?
It's always strong, but it's stronger this year because people were shocked that the Red Sox were as good as they are. The Red Sox were supposed to be last in that division as the Blue Jays by quite a bit. So yeah, the AL East is good, but again, it's because the Yankees and the Orioles are really good. There's no overpowering teams this year in baseball.
So Quads, actually, the Mariners are only 6.5 back in the wild card, so not as far back as I thought they were going to be.
But in late August,
it's tough. But
And
the only team between them and a wild card spot is Boston. So it's not like they're 6.5 back with 4 teams in front of them. But still, the easier path would be through the division where they are, I believe, 4.5 back.
Tonight's the night. Tonight's the night, Mariners, to take down the LA Dodgers. Again, folks, sorry about the technical difficulties at the start. I'm sure you could tell about it at the halfway point. We got it figured out and I got my energy up, but I felt like I was a little lethargic to start. And that's not just because I was starting to be in vacation mode. That was just because I couldn't hear anything and it was very weird. But I think we finished strong. I know we finished strong when it came to Family Feud. So we will close it out there. Oh, before that, I need to tell you that our Bet365 bet of the day. Brought to you by Bet365. Proud partner of Canucks Conversation. Be sure to use code VANBONUS when you sign up for an account. Must be 90 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. Time for a vacation.
And we're supposed to mention Bet365, now the official betting provider of the UEFA Champions League. So there we go. Big things for our betting sponsor over at Bet365.
Our friends. I need a vacation so bad. I'm so excited to leave. But yeah, I'll see you folks in September. And Harman, you'll be back next week with Irfan Ghaffar. But for now, signing off, my name is Diego Drelli. That is Harman Dial. Our technical producer, who's got some edits today, is Jacob Lazar. Thank you so much for listening to the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.